The story begins in 1968. A young man named Paul is driving his girlfriend Iris through the suburbs along a railroad track. Iris has her eyes covered. Paul's planning a surprise. He's taking her to the grand opening of the Skyview restaurant. The twist? It's perched on top of a towering structure, offering a stunning panoramic view of the city. Despite the romantic setting, Iris can't shake a dark feeling. As they arrive, she notices a young boy fishing coins out of a fountain dropped by previous guests. She forces a smile for a souvenir photo, and then they head toward the elevator. It's already packed, but the operator waves them in anyway. The tension builds when the doors struggle to close on the first try. A sign inside warns, "Do not exceed 8 passengers." Even the breathtaking view that unfolds during the ascent isn't enough to calm Iris's unease. A bratty kid starts stomping on the glass floor, practically begging for a well-deserved smack upside the head. Once they reach the top, the couple finds out that Paul's dinner reservation has been canceled. The guy he booked it through was recently fired. Frustrated and embarrassed, they squeeze their way to the bar, pretending they belong there. Iris, already on edge, starts feeling sick from the sweeping panoramic view through the massive windows. To make things worse, the dance floor is also made of glass designed to give guests a sense of superiority over the tiny people below, or just induce mass vertigo. As Iris weaves her way through the crowd toward the restroom, she doesn't notice a champagne cork popping off a bottle and knocking a sharp crystal pendant loose from a chandelier. The shard plummets, its point striking the glass floor. A thin crack begins to spread. Later, Paul brings Iris up to the rooftop observation deck to propose. But instead of just saying yes, she drops a bomb. She's pregnant. Still, Paul slips the ring onto her finger, and the couple heads back into the restaurant to celebrate. As they're leaving the rooftop, Iris spots that same annoying little kid hurling a coin over the edge. The coin spins through the air like a fighter pilot doing a barrel roll, then vanishes into a ventilation shaft. Inside, it jams a fan blade, which eventually snaps and punctures a gas line. Invisible but deadly, flammable gas starts leaking into the main hall. Back on the dance floor, the stomping of dozens of guests creates a deep vibration. The weakened support beams groan as the cracks spiderweb across the glass panels. Seconds later, the floor shatters. Dozens of dancers plummet through the collapsing glass, right in front of Iris, who steps back just in time. Paul clings to the jagged edges, dangling over the abyss, but it doesn't last long. The glass gives way, and he falls to his death. Panic erupts. Guests shove past one another. In the chaos, someone knocks over a chef holding a torch, which ignites a woman's dress. Screaming and on fire, she stumbles directly toward the ventilation shaft, the one leaking gas. The combination is catastrophic. One spark, and half the restaurant erupts in a fireball. Watching the chaos unfold, the elevator operator suggests the survivors take the stairs. The crowd surges toward the emergency exit in a full-blown stampede, pushing and shoving like it's Black Friday. But the staircase can't handle the weight. It collapses under them. Only one person makes it to safety, that obnoxious little kid. Of course, with the stairs gone, the only way down is the elevator, but there's not nearly enough space. An impatient old man refuses to wait his turn. The doors clamp down on him mid-push, and seconds later, the cable snaps. The elevator plummets, taking everyone inside with it. The remaining structure of the restaurant starts tilting to one side. Guests slide across the floor like marbles on glass, heading straight toward the still intact windows, everyone except Iris, who manages to stay at the base of the slope. Then, fate steps in again. The infamous coin launched skyward by the earlier explosion finally loses its momentum. It falls from a chandelier and lands with a clang on a grand piano. The instrument tips, slowly then faster. It rolls downhill, pounding out a tragic crescendo as it smashes through the glass along with a handful of unlucky guests. And the final note, the piano crashes straight down onto the bratty little boy who started it all. Iris looks around and realizes she's not the only survivor. A young boy, the son of a lounge singer, is still alive. She rushes toward him to help, but the tower begins its final death rattle. She grabs the boy with one hand, and with the other, her finger catches on an exposed beam. Gravity does the rest. The skin tears, the grip fails, and together, they plunge into free fall toward their inevitable death. Suddenly, Iris vanishes. It was all a nightmare. Stephanie, a college student, jolts awake in the middle of a dull lecture, her scream echoing through the classroom. Later, after her fed-up roommate complains about her nightly horror episodes, Stephanie decides to return to her roots to find answers. She's determined to visit her grandmother Iris and ask why she keeps dying in her dreams over and over again. When she gets home, she's greeted by her brother Charlie and their father. The problem? Iris is her maternal grandmother and her mother has been gone for years. So Stephanie and Charlie head out to visit Uncle Howard, Iris's son, who lives with his own kids, Bobby and Eric, her rowdy cousins, and their sister Julia. Uncle Howard reveals that their grandmother used to keep him and his sister locked up for most of their childhood for their own safety, she claimed. Eventually, Eventually, Child Protective Services stepped in and stripped Iris of her parental rights. After her husband died, Iris became obsessed. She saw death everywhere, in every shadow, behind every closed door. Even after the kids were taken from her, she kept sending them letters filled with newspaper clippings, all stories about fatal car crashes and gruesome accidents. Stephanie finds one of these boxes stuffed with Iris's old letters. Among them is a faded photo from the Skyview restaurant and a return address. Determined to get answers, she travels deep into the woods, to a remote cabin that looks more like a doomsday prepper's bunker than a home. And, for good reason, Iris doesn't take kindly to visitors. She only lets Stephanie in after confirming their blood relatives, and even then, only after making her empty her pockets. As Stephanie steps inside, she slams the heavy door behind her. The sudden jolt knocks a fire extinguisher loose from its mount on the wall. It hits the floor with a loud clang. Then comes the face-to-face, and it becomes clear fast. Granny's not all there. Whatever lease her sanity had on reality, it expired a long time ago. She keeps talking to something or someone just beyond the edge of the room, calling out to death like it's an old friend. Iris tells Stephanie that the day she keeps dreaming about, the one in the restaurant, actually happened, but not the way she thinks. According to Iris, she had a vision that day. She saw the danger, took the coin away from the boy, and warned the guests about the crack in the glass. Thanks to her, dozens were saved. But death doesn't like being cheated. Ever since then, it's been coming after everyone who should have died that day, starting with her husband, Paul. For years, Iris tracked every bizarre coincidence, every tragic accident, and documented it all in a thick, handwritten book, her own guide to death's patterns. But now she's dying. Cancer. Nothing to stop it. She believes her gift, the visions, the warnings, has now passed to Stephanie. And when she's gone, death will move on to the rest of her bloodline, her children, their children, all of them. So she begs Stephanie to stay hidden, stay off the radar, avoid accidents at all costs. But Stephanie's had enough. She thinks her grandmother's just delusional, spinning paranoid stories to make sense of a wasted life. She heads for the door, but Iris isn't about to let her go that easily. She's going to prove that death is real. For the first time in years, Iris steps outside just to hand over her book of death, her folio, as she calls it. But fate doesn't wait long. The extinguisher launches into the air and slams directly into Iris's skull. She drops instantly. Just like that, death corrects the ledger. At her funeral, the whole family gathers. Even Darlene, Stephanie's estranged mother, shows up, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Not wanting to deal with her, Stephanie leaves early while the rest of the family heads to Uncle Howard's place for the wake. While setting things up, someone accidentally drops a glass. A shard slips unnoticed into the cooler full of ice. In the backyard, there's a trampoline, old, stretched, and tearing in places. Underneath it, a pair of garden rakes lying in wait. Howard's sons beg him to do a flip. Darlene notices the rakes just in time and moves them aside so her brother doesn't kill himself. Meanwhile, Julia knocks over a bottle and unintentionally hits the water pump switch. The hose fills with pressure. That's when Stephanie shows up, visibly shaken. She's been digging through Iris's book and something's wrong, very wrong. The visit distracts Bobby, who steps right into the torn fabric on the trampoline. At the same time, the now pressurized hose jerks, knocking the rakes back into place, then hits the switch on the lawnmower. Howard steps barefoot on the ice shard and stumbles. He falls directly under the mower's spinning blades. After the funeral, Stephanie and her uncle go through Iris's journal in detail. They find a mention of someone named JB, someone who supposedly tracked survivors who managed to cheat death. There's also a chilling list, a chronological order of those who survived the Skyview collapse and how they died, one by one. Stephanie realizes it's a pattern. The survivors and their families are dying in the exact same order they would have died back at the restaurant, just like in her dreams. She tells the family that now, after Iris and Howard, the next targets are Howard's kids, especially the eldest, Eric. But no one listens. That evening, Eric's at the tattoo parlor where he works. He's cleaning up, blasting music with the fan spinning overhead. He decides to ink himself a tribute to his dad. He doesn't notice the bass from the subwoofer shaking a small figurine off the shelf. It knocks over a metal tin. Startled by the sound, Eric swivels his chair and bumps a cabinet. A bottle of disinfectant, highly flammable, tips over and spills across the floor. Then, the chain holding a ceiling fixture gives out. The carabiner catches his nose ring on the way down and coils itself around the fan motor. Now he's tethered helpless, suspended above a growing puddle of flammable liquid. Eric tries to unhook himself, climbing higher to reach the fan. In the process, he knocks over a heat lamp. It crashes to the floor. Sparks fly. Flames erupt across the spilled disinfectant, and death, once again, gets what it came for. At the last second, Eric manages to unhook the carabiner, but falls straight into the burning puddle below. Flames quickly spread to the rest of the spilled flammable liquids. The room explodes in a a fiery blast. The next morning, Stephanie, worried that her brother isn't answering his phone, heads to his place with Charlie. On the way, they nearly hit Eric himself, miraculously alive after the fire, saved by his leather jacket. He mocks Stephanie's fears, defiantly striding closer to a garbage truck. Meanwhile, Julia goes for a jog. While the family argues over what to do next, she suddenly gets hit in the head with a machete and falls into a dumpster. The garbage truck promptly lifts the bin and dumps it into the compactor. The others notice and rush to help. Charlie and Eric chase after the truck to catch the driver's attention, while Stephanie climbs into the dumpster to rescue Julia, but it's too late. The compactor crushes not only the trash, but the unfortunate runner too. After this, the family finally starts taking Stephanie's warnings seriously. They discover Eric is safe because his aunt cheated on Howard, so Eric isn't blood related to Iris and therefore not marked by death. That means Bobby is next. Determined to save him, the family rushes to the hospital where JB, Iris's old friend, works. JB, or William Bloodward, is a pathologist who was saved by Iris as a boy. Their friendship revealed two ways to cheat death: kill someone else and steal their allotted time, or survive clinical death and resuscitation, which resets the countdown. While everyone debates what to do, Eric suggests the risky plan: induce clinical death for Bobby and then revive him. Conveniently, they're already in a hospital. They quietly sneak away to carry out the plan. Eric plans to trigger anaphylactic shock with a peanut candy, then rush Bobby to the ICU on a wheelchair. They buy a candy from a vending machine, but it gets stuck. Eric tells Bobby to tilt the machine, almost dropping it. Candy in hand, they head to the MRI room, unaware that their movements accidentally start the machine. Handing Bobby an auto-injector filled with antihistamine, he eats the peanut candy. The allergic reaction hits fast. Bobby collapses, slipping into shock. As Eric waits for Bobby to flatline, the massive MRI magnet powers up, slowly yanking the piercings from Eric's body. The MRI machine magnetizes the wheelchair and at the same time snaps Eric in half, the metal tubes of the chair piercing through him like a deadly cage. Gasping for air, Bobby crawls toward the auto-injector still clenched in his late brother's hand. He manages to inject himself, pushing his body upright just as the door swings open. A spring from the vending machine dislodged earlier shoots through the doorway and screws itself straight into Bobby's skull. The survivors find the bodies of their dead relatives and realize the next target is their mother, Darlin. To avoid a torturous death, they decide to hide in Iris's cabin, a place she had safely lived in for decades. But first, they must reach it without getting caught in another fatal accident. Stephanie takes the wheel of her mother's RV, the trio speeding toward the cabin. Upon arrival, the gates are locked tight. Stephanie attempts a battering ram, accelerating the RV and slamming into the gate near a pond. Suddenly, a tiny object falls off a shelf inside, jamming the seatbelt lock. Frantically trying to free herself, Stephanie orders Charlie to drive their mother to safety. But inside the cabin, death has already begun its work. Sparks from faulty wiring ignite dry leaves, which scatter with the wind. Inside, the rope that Stephanie had frayed during her last visit snaps. A flower pot falls, severing a gas line. The moment the door is cracked open, a stray spark triggers a massive explosion. Darlin pushes her son away just in time as a heavy log falls and beam crushes her. The shockwave flips the RV into the pond, water flooding the cabin where Stephanie is strapped in. Now, it is her turn to die. Charlie dives in after her, using a knife found in a nearby cabinet to cut the seatbelt. But Stephanie no longer struggles. The screen fades to black. Stephanie slowly regains consciousness outside. Her brother pulled her free and revived her just in time, stopping death's curse from claiming another victim. Sometime later, an elderly woman buying lemonade accidentally drops a coin from a fountain, echoing the coin Stephanie dropped from Iris's book. It rolls down, the very same coin that once jammed the railway switch. Charlie prepares to go to prom with his girlfriend. Her father, meeting Stephanie, mentions she was never truly clinically dead. Too little time had passed before her brother brought her back. In that moment, the family realizes they have broken death's curse. But then, a massive freight train derails, triggered by that damned coin, barreling straight toward them, crushing idyllic houses in its path. They run for their lives, but from the last railcar, logs fly out, severing their lives one by one, and with that, the film cuts to black.